What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another Walk, Talk, and Rock. I'm your host, Xaiyeon, and today we'll be talking about a more nostalgic game or journey, I would might say. And we'll be discussing something that maybe people are missing these days, or I guess it's because it's one of the first MMOs that was able to capture the essence of what it was like to experience the internet age back in the days, right? Multiplayer games such as RuneScape, MapleStory, Elder Scrolls, the very first browser game. Oh man, what was it called? I forgot what it was called. It's not Elysian. Well, anyways, like Conquer, Rose Online, even Fly for Fun, Domo. But what is it that brings Ragnarok to keep coming back, but it's not good every single time, right? Because there was a time when Ragnarok Online did not need a cinematic overhaul. They didn't need this mobile slop. You spawned into a strange little anime world. You walked into Pantera. You heard the nice, calm music. Makes you feel like you're on an adventure. And you got to see other people in the game experiencing this moment with you together. And you were able to connect with people from different continents. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about the history of Ragnarok and the upcoming Ragnarok versions and my personal experience and observation playing Ragnarok throughout the years. I'm pretty much an old gamer, obviously. So, for the first section, we'll be talking about why Ragnarok became so special and why it's still a well-known franchise today, and why the company Gravity and whatever other company keeps buying the IP to try and bring back the player base, but it's mostly a business perspective. Section 2, we'll talk about modern Ragnarok, why it keeps failing every single time. Because these people are not true gamers. They're not true game developers that run the show. And then we'll talk about Ragnarok New World, which is a hybrid PC mobile game that is coming out today or tomorrow, or it was out already yesterday. And then we're going to talk about the real Ragnarok, Ragnarok 3, which is said to, I think they're going to release it next year, and they have some closed beta this year. And I just want to talk about what I think about it very briefly. And in section 5, I just want to share my personal opinions and thoughts on how to make Ragnarok, adaptable today's audience. So you better listen up, because if you're struggling, especially for developers or publishers, and you really want to make money, you better listen to me, because I've been playing video games for over 20 years, and my focus of study is system design and architecture. So yeah, I have some things to say about it. So let's get started on the first topic about Ragnarok and why it's became so popular. So for Ragnarok Online, it started as an early Korean MMO, right? And then back then, literally anything that had online capability, honestly, with multiplayer and obviously chat and whatever, and some sense of adventure, it was going to be popular. Literally every game was popular. You had people playing anything: Hobo, Club Penguin, Neopets, everything, Gaia Online, everything, MapleStory. And during this time, I guess it was a golden boom for the Korean gaming industry, because they just had tapped into this sort of phenomenon, and we didn't really have anything like that in other countries, right? So Ragnarok, essentially, if you never heard of Ragnarok Online, was a game where you could pick many different classes, and you choose one, and you can later rebirth and spec and continuously do that to build out your character. It was a 2D anime game with 2D graphics that was self-shaded, but it looks really nice for a game that didn't require that much programming or coding. It had a very strong foundation, with the class and job systems I just mentioned. There was a lot of classes, I would say, and different paths for each class with the job system. They also had a lot of things going on in the game, like hunting, everything you could think of, honestly. Because the thing is, back in the day, programming and creating assets for these type of games was honestly much more manageable and cheap compared to today, where we have really 3D heavy 4K assets, okay? So Ragnorok Online wasn't just good though for those features. It was mostly the community behind it. And while I have not experienced the amazing communities of Ragnarok, I'm pretty sure there's always been popular guilds and popular communities that were withstanding throughout the game's life. I've only briefly played Ragnarok for a few months before I transitioned into playing RuneScape and MapleStory. But I'm pretty sure the nostalgia for both games are very similar to Ragnarok. So, the thing that makes these games special, especially in the Korean place, is obviously the music. The music is very simple and catchy, and another reason that helps people feel like that nostalgic trip is because most of the time in these old Korean games, you don't just spend hours grinding in the same area. You can spend days or even weeks grinding in certain areas. And when you have something that's enjoyable, gratifying, and literally gets that dopamine, everybody gets that dopamine catch, then they always come back to it. And not only that, but the progression was rewarding back then. And people really respected how they would find different ways of making the game less of a grind and enjoyable because of how different it was back then. Compared to talking to people face to face, which is still most people's preferred method of communication. Talking online opened up a lot of doors, and people were able to find similar other people like themselves than if they were supposed to meet up and go to the bar or the library or some club or even at your job or school. It's very difficult, especially for people that have very niche likes. And one thing for certain is common, that when you're all playing the same game, you're all inclined to communicate with each other because you already share a shared interest in gaming, online communication, and maybe a little bit of role play. Because let's face it, most people that play video games tend to role play because it's like an escape from reality, which is a valid reason. So, the main portions that make Ragnarok so popular is not only was it one of the first MMOs to ever grasp people, especially people from the 90s or 80s, is because it was one of the first to market. And people always... Oh my god. Sorry, I'm just fighting this enemy. People would always miss the days of sitting in Pantera, AFK selling, or asking... I think they had a fame system as well, like MapleStory, or playing the card games. And it was just a great way to kill time, honestly. There was really no rush. Life was slow back then, you know, compared to today. Everything seems and feels fast because everybody's asking so much of each other, trying to always want more. And that's totally not part of the topic, so I don't want to talk about too much philosophical stuff. But yeah, people liked Ragnarok because you were mostly tasked with doing one thing, which is always working on the progression of your character, whether it would be farming, life skills, doing guild raids, hanging out, chatting. And it was just a great way to kill time, honestly. You know, you'd be in a party, farming in a certain area, and you're just chatting with your buddies and your friends, and you would meet new people along the way. And that was such a nice feeling. And since back then, there was hardly any guides, people would form guilds around information and knowledge for the game. And that was one of the few things and the beauties of game dev back then. Like, developers would tell you there's an update, but they won't really go into much detail because that's most of the fun of it for the player to figure out. And you would see people optimizing routes, optimizing dungeons, optimizing leveling, and that was a really fun experience, as long as you didn't take it too seriously and became a sweaty gamer or whatever. So we had all that, right? Ragnarok delivered on all those aspects, and people enjoyed it. Because the point of Ragnarok was that it was really just a breath of fresh air. And then other games started copying it. You know, WoW came about, or I believe WoW is a little bit earlier. So there was a lot of competition in the MMO genre. And things started just going south after, because the magic started to wear off and people grow up and technology gets better, obviously. So for you, other than grinding and chilling on Pantera, being AFK all the time, what is the most memorable thing that you've enjoyed in Ragnarok? Like, what was your first job change? Your first MVP? Or did you just enjoy the community? And do you still talk to those people that you've met in Ragnarok? Because there's some people that have made lasting relationships with other people in MMOs, especially in the recent games such as Final Fantasy XIV, where you can join an FC, something company. Well, I can't remember what the F stands for. And you just basically find other similar people, and you just do party content, same way you did in Ragnarok. Now, with nostalgia put away, different grinding planes and whatnot, why does all these remakes, even Ragnarok 2, Second Son, and other followed up Ragnarok games, keep failing? It's because the developers and publishers are still hung up on the part about how can we turn this franchise into a profitable franchise. When in reality, we all know that when you want something in life so bad, you will never get it. Because it's that the thing about that duality is that people will know when you want something, and when you're desperate, it shows, and that just naturally deters people, human beings, I guess. That's just in nature. I mean, for me, I don't particularly care, but for most, it just happens that way. So the thing with newer and modern Ragnarok games right now is that they try to create that nostalgia again, but they literally take out all the difficult parts that a lot of people find annoying these days because a lack of patience. What else? A lack of trying to read text and a lack of trying to be curious. They want instant gratification because their attention span nowadays is thus less than 5 seconds. I kid you not. There's some people in the workplace that literally can't do work of the same thing for 5 hours straight, let alone 2 hours or 1 hour, which is kind of crazy. So I don't know how they studied in school. So this nostalgia that they keep adding, is like auto-pathing, which is very bad, because back then you would go to the place manually and you would press keys and just farm like crazy manually. That's kind of lame to say that, but yeah, they always had heavy weekly and daily pass, battle pass, whatever. So now it feels like a chore, and gaming and having fun isn't supposed to feel like a chore at all. You should be able to miss a few days, even a few weeks, and come back to a game and have fun. Given that the development progress is going not well, but probably smooth enough, with events here and there catered to people that celebrate some holidays or whatnot, like a New Year's event, Valentine's, Easter, which most of these games that came from Ragnarok does, but they don't do it well because it always has something to do with money. And these people, they keep putting that in their face first without putting the gameplay first. Like, no one gives a shit about the cash shop features, okay? Like, let's put yourself in their shoes, which is kind of hard for some people to even think, because I guess they've been fed money all their lives. They don't understand that the purpose of money isn't to make more of it. The purpose of money is to allocate it in such a way that makes progress for your civilization. And if you just don't understand that concept, I don't know why you're in business or in any circumstance of economics or whatever. Because at the end of the day, it's not about profit. And that's what all these new Ragnarok spin-offs keep missing. They're not listening to the player base. They're only thinking about short-term profits. Like most of the Ragnarok games, like even after Second Son and all these mobile spin-offs, they would only last like a few months to a few years at most, and then they go end of service. So now you're already butchering the trust of the players. Can you imagine if you lived in my country, and I mean this is already happening for thousands of years, guys, and then 20 years later, everything is just down the drain because I decide one day we're gonna tax the living shit out of you, and then, or maybe you become disabled and you can't afford health insurance, whatever. And that's how most civilizations fail, because of high taxes, zero welfare system, and just no help in general. They just literally straight up ignore you. And I don't know how those people function. I don't know how those people think. I don't know how those people breathe. They're either robots programmed to think that way, or they're just actually really stupid. And that's how you need to think about Ragnarok, the same way. So these people need to take what was good about Ragnarok, which is actually just the community. Because an MMO, the shining features are the community around it, and it has a decent amount of gameplay loop. And the gameplay loop is actually not decided by the game. It's actually decided by the players that feel that their time is rewarded. Like, who in their right mind wants to be disrespected by the amount of time they put into something? It's like me or you going to work for 8 hours, and let's say you only make like what, $1, but then the CEO or whatever, they don't do jack most of the time. Like they talk, they share their experience, but they don't really do like any of the work. You know what that's similar to? Like one of those baby stories where the red hen wants everybody on the farm to make a loaf of bread, and then at the end, everybody realized that, oh, basically like the Ants movie as well in Bug's Life. Hey, come on. Everyone has grown up on that. Not to say that it isn't fair for people, but I really feel that anyone can be a leader given the chance. And that's what a good leader does too. Lets other people lead and manage. Because everybody could do it. If you can talk, and even if you can't, there's always technology. And I believe that anybody can lead, honestly. It's not really a new thing. Some can't lead as well, but some can't lead as good. And maybe some don't know effective techniques. But at the end of the day, people will figure out a way. Just like how in Ragnarok, when people were playing and discovering the new dungeons and whatnot. So with the mobile Ragnaroks and the modern, most of it is pay to win. And obviously these days, no one really likes pay to win. Life is already pay to win. So why is something that I want to de-stress and put some time into pay to win? People don't want paid enhancement materials for their gear. People don't really want paid convenience for their time. People don't want paid bypasses for stamina. People just want the game as it is. And while people argue that things can't be for free, there can be other ways to monetize a live game service, such as just having a paid subscription, or having cosmetics that don't have pay to win in it, or a little bit of stuff like storage or whatnot. Because I know, like, people and developers still, we have no idea what people would like to pay for, and people would still want to have a game up. Well, they can also have custom features that are just cosmetic titles for donations, and a very modern game such as Where Winds Meets does this so well that the monetization practice is fair and rewarding. So those are the kind of things that they should be thinking about. We need to make a Venn diagram and always compare your business model to what a free player and a paying player should do. I mean, in real life, it's very obvious the amount of social hierarchy and financial literacy and intelligence of knowledge varies from different types of socioeconomic status. And if you were to treat it the same way as you would in real life, or you're just a freaking elitist noble that really couldn't care that much about poor people in general, then you're going to have no one that's going to work for you. And you'll just be one of those people that will be disrespected, and maybe you might get that, Mamma Mia accident. You know what I mean? So Ragnarok doesn't need to be trapped in 2002. It just needs to be revamped and cared for the way it was back in the days. Just with enhanced graphics, enhanced controls, better UI, and maybe they could add more classes, I guess, depending on the new game engine. But they don't need to add all this other stuff and simplifying everything to think that, oh, the new kids are like this, blah, blah, blah. Because you don't like something right away. You have to grow into it, right? You need to sell the idea that if you spend time in the game, you'll get rewarded. And that's how you retain a player base. Because if you give them instant gratification, why would anyone want to stay if it's instant already? Because they would know that they can get it right away. Certain parts of progression should feel that way, especially for endgame. If it's too grindy, nonetheless, then people will have a hard time catching up. So you want to make those progression systems tied to things that require you to be part of something, but still not be left behind. And that was the shining thing, was the guilds, right? And that's what I'm talking about. The true grind of Ragnarok wasn't the game itself. It was the social atmosphere of keeping up with everybody else and being a part of that grind. Nowadays, people are in segregated groups competing against each other, and you see lots of MMOs fail to deliver on communities that actually care about each other. You just see one guild conquer everybody, and they're really like, they have this mentality that they're so freaking good that, like, if you're even less powerful, they just ignore you. And yeah, you just see what happens to those kind of societies. They don't last long anyway. And that brings us with the biggest new attempt that we have right now, which is Ragnarok, the New World, which is trying to sell itself as a true open world version of Ragnarok. It's a more mobile, modernized version, which is okay. It kind of brings back the roots of the original Ragnarok, in my opinion. So I'll probably be giving that game a try soon. Ragnarok New World is officially licensed open world. If you didn't know, Ragnarok is developed by Gravity, Korean-based company. And this game is available on PC and mobile. On PC, you can get it through Steam, or you can get it through their launcher, I believe. It's open world Ragnarok setting, has that classic style that you love and know, with a newer engine, 8 classes, a new druid class, MVPs that can be tamed as mounts. We got everything like stalls, outfits, party play, you know, the basic stuff. And I believe it's crossplay with mobile and PC. And the cool thing is, you can also play the game offline for auto hunting. That's right, auto hunting, which was a very popular feature, or not feature, but I mean, people were hunting in the old Ragnarok days, you know, leveling up every job and then rebirthing and whatnot, which is fine. And when people come back, you know, they can talk about it, what they're doing on auto hunting. They just have to have some way to keep the conversation going. You know, it's at this point, when you look for long-term player bases, it's about people forming an identity in the community. Like, you know why I play this game? I don't really have an identity anymore, but I was a guild leader and guild officer for like top 5 guilds in Phantasy Star. And even though no one really cares about that now, as times go on and players change, people quit, it still makes me feel invested, because I invested a lot of time into this game, and I just don't want to throw away those memories as long as the game exists. And that is true for a lot of people that have put the same amount of hours into Ragnarok Online, trying to rekindle that fire. But now, you know, Ragnarok has really died down, and not many new players are able to support the development, because honestly, the developers and publishers have failed to do so, which goes into this game. That's probably the one more interesting about this modern Ragnarok, is because it's not only trying to remake old Ragnarok, it's trying to expand this open world adventure into a more modern story. So hopefully that will cater to most of these players that play like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail or Wuthering Waves, which is just a ton of gacha games, which have okay stories in my opinion, but you know they'll be the same once you play a lot of them. But what it really needs to do is bring the exploration and the online aspect together. Not saying like to force people to play with other people online, but to reward people for playing with other people. You know, that's the thing that makes people come back to social media. That's the thing that makes people come back. You know, you subscribe to a YouTube channel because you want to watch more of their videos. You follow people on Twitter because you love looking at their pictures. You need that same social engagement in the MMO, not just the gameplay. So, what should we watch for in the Ragnarok New World? You just have to watch out for, or what the developers have to do is make sure that the journey is inclusive of everybody and gives us a sense of purpose. Like, holy shit, how hard is it to give people a sense of purpose in life? Like, I don't know what's difficult about that. You know, like maybe your sense of purpose right now is to take care of your family, or your sense of purpose right now is to make, money so that you could eat good food or whatever. It just needs to be something that people are already addicted to. And the cool thing about Ragnarok back then was you were able to find people with those same interests. So people were able to progress in different all kinds of guilds, right? Same thing with Final Fantasy 14 and WoW. And that nostalgia hasn't been felt right now because of the changing demographics and I guess intellectual environment of the younger and upcoming newer generations. So the game has to solve those problems, right? And present itself as a gateway to fixing those insecurities. That's what a developer's job. Aside from making a game fun, they have to psychologically convince, or kind of like a therapy session, if you might will, give a reason for people to put more time into things. Okay, it needs to be rewarding. That's all I gotta say, and respectful of people's time. Like, you know, when you play a game and it has PvP, you spend like 1,000 hours as a free to play, only to get destroyed by a whale with 100 hours because they spent $1 million. That's not fun. Similar with life. Like, why would anybody want to spend their time on Earth working a 9-to-5 for 20 years when Joe over there, already born with $5 million to his name? Like, hello? Are we that stupid? Are we really this stupid? Like, it's literally a waste of time. Like, why would I want to waste my time doing this shit? Like, I already feel like I'm wasting my time every day when I go to work. And I have to work with Nepo babies and trust fund kids and all that shit. Privileged people everywhere. And then you wonder why MMOs don't last long. Because it's that same feeling that we have somehow not been able to fix or just understand. When in reality, things have to be fair and just start over. So, in my opinion, or my question to the audience is, do you think this offline auto hunting is a good feature? Will it actually solve the issue of people falling behind in terms of progression? And will it make people continue to still put time into it, even though they're not present most of the time? At least they can still be able to play the content that they are behind on, because at least they were able to do the bare minimum right. which a lot of games do right now. They call them the freebies. You know, you say for the return veterans or whatever. Like you haven't logged in for a long time. They give you like a experience boost or whatever. Imagine if it was like that in real life, you know. If I haven't worked in 2 years to give me like 100K so I can get myself back on my feet. Imagine that, right? Sorry. That would have been cool. But nah, when you're behind in real life, you're just SOL. Shit out of luck, honestly. Unlike a video game, right? Which is kind of sad. But it is what it is. Humans aren't perfect. So that's why Ragnarok remakes haven't been perfect. So moving on to the next section, we're talking now about Ragnarok 3, a more mature development, and I feel is actually the true successor to Ragnarok. I believe it's being developed by a third-party studio under Gravity. And I think this one has potential because, yeah, it really polishes just the good things about Ragnarok in general. And I don't know about you, but most of the development team is pretty young. And hopefully they actually played the game, because a lot of these people don't actually play the game and understand what matters in these games. Like when they had Ragnarok 2, Second Son, or Beginning, whatever son, that game was full 3D. It was great and all, but it didn't have the same spirit, features, or like, you know, the soul, the art of the original Ragnarok. And the community was very divided and hard to come by because of how open world it was. Like making a game open world, but then having no players to interact with doesn't make people want to come back to that kind of game, right? So there always has to be a part in the game where you bring in a lot of players together. I don't care if it's a force event. I don't care if it's part of the main quest. I don't care if it's a story. You need to have a part in your game that brings in a lot of players together and not forces them, but makes them think that they need to communicate to get something done. Because when people communicate together, they're just gonna be more social, you know. I mean, that's how it is, right? You gotta spend more social time with people to convince them that it's worth their time. And people will just like that. I mean, I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy communicating with people, trying to beat a dungeon or quest for a raid. It's great. It's fun. Whether you take it seriously or not, it's always fun, in my opinion. So hopefully Gravity can come back to that. Or it was really just luck in the beginning, like I said. The original Ragnarok, literally anyone that had some multiplayer instance was a hit, because it was a new thing, new phenomenon back in the day of the internet age. So they were probably not even thinking about that and didn't realize what they had was not really unique. And hopefully they hone on the parts that made it unique. But at the end of the day, for them, when it comes to Ragnarok 3, it has to succeed, or else I think that's pretty much it for Gravity. It has a lot of good concepts, like Empyrean concept, important memories from the original Ragnarok. Obviously, it's going to have guilds and stuff like that. Hopefully, it's going to bring back some of the jobs that people loved. You know, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in it. And they still need to capture new existing players. What it needs to do is have an identity for guilds, and also be very welcoming and not that punishing for new players, you know, if they fall behind. Because most people, they don't want to play or try something if they know they're behind, right? I mean, I think that's just human nature. A seasonal structure would be smart, kind of like Path of Exile. Maybe you can have characters that, I mean, not character, but you can register your character into a seasonal thing, so you can get like seasonal titles and seasonal cosmetics. I mean, it's also true for Path of Exile, and I think this thing is a very popular method of having people come back to a game without being too invested in it. Because you would know that to get to a certain part of the end game, it would take X amount of months, and every season is something new and fresh. So I think that would be a great implementation for Ragnarok, because Ragnarok has a really strong foundation in gameplay mechanics and features, such as a lot of rebirthing, and being able to have seasonal dungeons and like a main storyline, not main storyline, but you know, like a main line that tracks the main story so that people can get to the part where it's all about community and then doing the guild raids and whatnot for getting seasonal rewards. And I hope they add that in Ragnarok 3 in some certain way. Because I feel like the seasonal structure, even though it could be tiring, if every single MMO does this, if people really liked the game franchise, they would spend their time. And I guess that's more that matters. I mean, games have them now with like monthly battle passes and everything like that, but they don't tie it to community belonging and progression. So they have to tie it to something worthy of value, you know? Like if I'm playing a game and I meet someone online and we both like the game and we realize we have the same interests, of course we're going to keep in touch and all. We'll just have to forget some of the realities that we face in life, right? Other than the similarities we enjoy together in the online world, which many people will think it's cringe. But is it really cringe at all if you're making a friend in this world of 8 billion people and you feel like you are alone? Not at all. It's not cringe at all. It's understanding. It's acceptable. And when people realize that, it will build and increase the population of the game. So Ragnarok 3 does not need to be the biggest MMO in the world. It just needs to be the first modern Ragnarok that attracts people because of the community aspect, maybe some memes or whatever. Like they have to have something fun in the game as well. And just a feeling of adventure with the community. I don't want to bring up another point, but games like Escape from Tarkov, people play the game not because it's like grindy or whatever. It's because of the community. People have fun doing dumb builds and having fun in raid. It could be the same way with Ragnarok 3. You know, they can have raids like that. And we already had seen failure with Bandai Namco and Blue Protocol as a modern PCX mobile game, and that didn't do well because it really did not have features that brought people together, right? And it also had like an AFK auto hunting, right? So Ragnarok needs to be very careful about implementing those features and take into consideration of how people, you know, are just busy in life, honestly. And kids these days have a attention span less than 5 seconds. So if Ragnarok 3 launches and it has mobile and PC crossplay, do you think it will end up like previous titles in the genre, such as Blue Protocol? When Blue Protocol launched, it had a lot of marketing, and the peak was like, I don't know, maybe 100,000 or something. But now it's literally down to like 1,000 or 5,000, well, less than what it could be. Is it because of boredom? Is it because of lack of development? Could be many things, right? And with all those points said, to make Ragnarok great again, we don't need to copy every inconvenience from 2002 though. We just need to understand which of these inconveniences created the community. Like, let's say you had the inconvenience of a skill or a class, or the inconvenience of missing items or whatever. You need to make these inconveniences bring people together. Like, if, let's say an example, I'm born here, right? But I don't have fresh sushi. Maybe I want to communicate with someone that's playing from Japan or playing from Europe so I can get some of their food buffs or something. We need to make features centric and geographical so that we can see a need to communicate, right? That's the problem with these games. Games nowadays, they don't have a need for people to communicate with each other. But if you make it an essential for players to communicate, it will build that amazing community that Ragnarok had. But for Ragnarok, since it was one of those first games, the features and the need was mostly information, right? And classes and optimization. So the first thing to bring back Ragnorok 3, no power gotcha, no pay to win, because even younger audiences will get deterred by getting their ass whooped by a 50-year-old man with $1 billion. Oh, I would be sad. Manual play has to matter. You know, it must feel more rewarding than using the autoplay feature. Like if you use the autoplay, auto hunt, maybe the experience is less, but not too less, but less enough to make people actually playing the game, earning more rewarding, right? They need to bring back player economy. I mean, to deter bots, guys. You know the easiest way to deter bots? Just implement a single IP on single account feature. It's not that hard. And there's a lot of security, firewall, geographical things you can do. And it's basically just because the company doesn't care. I can do that for my apps. It's very, maybe it's a difficult concept, but I don't know, but it's pretty simple. You can record everything, the machine address, the IP, geographics, everything, the network. It's all there. Have the player shops be discoverable, not searchable. Have a main hub that's advertised as the market. So when you're having a player market, have players gather in specific central places, like, for example, in Final Fantasy 14 or even Mabinogi, everybody goes to a certain town, like Dunbarton or Turchinell or Imane Matcha. Oh, not Imane Matcha, sorry. What's the other town? Tara, I think. Or even in Middlestar, people go to the player market, right? Those places congregate many people to do one thing. So that way it doesn't feel like less of a feature and more of interaction. They need to have good rare drops that are rewarding, and they also need to make classes weird again. And nowadays we have things that we perceive that should happen. We need some weird classes, you know. Like maybe if you throw a coin, like the gold, like the coin cost, man, you need money and stuff like that. Or you have a class that like has jet boots or something. Or to think of these features, right? What we need to do is look at a meme, in my opinion. Take what makes that meme funny and just turn it into a class somehow. Turn some sort of item equip into a move of that meme. Maybe that'll capture some people. And the cards, the MVP should feel legendary. Like they should feel like they're grinded for a little bit. You know, have a sense of progression, but not too grindy. All right, not making it based on luck. So Final Fantasy does a great job on that. You know, where you have to collect the relic tokens and you can trade them in. But they still limit the amount of times you can run the dungeon. All right, guild wars must be fair. You know, even though there's gear issues, at least compensate with that. With buffs on the battlefield or during the guild war that can still normalize and change the tide of battle. All right, you got to think of ways for others guilds with less geared players to come back, even against whales. But if you can't do that, then you're not putting that much effort into the game development, and people will see that and not want to play your game. Have respectable towns and music. Like I said, place towns and cities in a place that's congressional eye looking visually. You know, if it's the main city in the center, adventurers around it. You don't want to have them like off to the side or anything. Make them very eye catching and give that main hub vibe. Like a perfect example, that's one of the, like I guess Limsa in Final Fantasy 14, and then I forgot which one is Wild Sanctuary, whatever. And you need to monetize people's trust, like I said. Reward people that do spend money in a way that gives them long-term progression. Because you don't want instant monetization. You know, like if I spend X amount of money and I get it right away, then that sucks. I mean, many people already do this with the battle pass. You know, you log in, you get this amount of gems for a whole month. But you could do better than that. You know, maybe give them a buff, reward them with something that keeps them coming back. Maybe like an extra pass to something. But people don't really like gated content or stamina-based content unless it's necessary. We don't want to deter the hardcore gamers. We still want to give them the option and ability to be hardcore by a marginal percent and still feel rewarding. And so even for casual players to be able to enjoy the game with those hardcore players and content that requires people. And maybe you could do it through random matchmaking or something. In Ragnarok 3, will either come back to glory, not because of the IP, but because of the community. You know, that's basically what, for MMOs, it's all about community, honestly. It's a little bit about the game itself, but mostly about the community. So for my prediction, Ragnarok New World will attract people and attention, maybe spark some interest again. And once they release their flagship Ragnarok 3 and have players move to that one, which might make Ragnarok New World feel like a cash grab, which in my honest opinion it probably is, so they can keep funding Ragnarok 3 development. We'll just have to understand that better. And maybe developers could be more clear onto that direction. So my last section here, question is like, what made Ragnarok Online a game that you like? Or why do you even play MMOs? Is it to escape reality? Or is it to feel more powerful than you are? Because in real life, you know, we can't really accomplish our dreams and fantasies because there's too many people. Or was it the feeling of joy, leveling? Or was it the thought that it gave you a soul to look forward to? It gave you a reason to wake up. So whether it is Ragnarok New World, Ragnarok 3, or any other game, developers need to stop showing nostalgia and build a world that people can adventure together, journey together, and somewhat grow together. You know, most adults, we don't really need to grow. Most of the growing is indeed just the lack of knowledge and understanding, which anybody can acquire through practice. You know, practicing programming, practicing advanced mathematics, practicing your welding skills, you know. And that's really what is separating people from higher careers, higher income earners. It's not because of like your knowledge or anything. It's just because of like the practice and dedication, you know. And that's always going to be true in every generation. There's always going to be someone that has more experience than you. There's always going to be someone that's more knowledgeable than you. But it's how we open these doors to other players to keep a franchise going. You need to have a strong onboarding system that lets people grow with and together with Like Final Fantasy 14 has this. They have the mentor system. Even though it's mostly like sometimes community can be a hit or miss, but that's literally what you need. A strong onboarding system for new players to help veterans, help people. Like, why would anybody want to raise a family on Earth if they're just gonna get nickel and dimed? I'm just gonna, like, you would just shoot yourself or jump off a cliff. Like, why even waste your time, right? It's too much to say, too much to say. So anyways, that's it for my Ragnarok talk. Hopefully they'll be able to capture the memories of what made Ragnarok great. More specifically, like the guild raids and basically just farming, get it with other people. Like they had like the novice job changes, and then you have multiple class tree systems. And I feel like Mabinogi adopted that system as well, because they're both Korean game companies, Nexon and Gravity. Hopefully they'll be able to deliver on the visuals, which is kind of what Tree of Savior tried to do, but I mean, they really couldn't find a way to monetize the game properly. So yeah, we'll have to see about that. For now, we'll check out Ragnarok, the New World, and we'll see what Gravity has to offer once they release Ragnarok 3, which I hope does a global launch or something. I mean, I can't really say much. You know, everything's starting to feel the same. You know what they say? But that's okay. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.